This is Dr. Woywood with Woywood Chiropractic, and today I want to begin a series on the death of modern medicine. Now, modern medicine isn't dead yet, but it's suffering, and we are the ones that are putting it at risk. So to begin this series, let's look at the birth of modern medicine. And you may remember that on September 28, 1928, Dr. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. He came home from vacation and went to his laboratory and found it to be in disarray. His petri dishes had been left open, and he had been growing Staphylococcus aureus, which we know as staph infection, and mold had grown in these petri dishes, and much to his surprise, had killed the staph. And so he looked further into that to realize that the bacteria had died because of the mold. He didn't do much more with that, and he certainly didn't realize that he was revolutionizing the practice of medicine. In 1938, Dr. Florey at Oxford began to study penicillin. He had been studying how bacteria and mold kill each other, and when he came across Dr. Fleming's paper, he was fascinated and began working with penicillin. He worked with a Dr. Ernst Chain, and they were trying to learn how to extract and purify penicillin so that it could be used on people, and they used mice as their subjects. But in 1940, the first human case of penicillin treatment occurred. There was a police constable named Albert Alexander, and he had developed a staph and strep infection in his eyes and scalp from a scratch to his face. Sulfa treatment had failed, and he developed abscesses in his lungs, eyes, and shoulder. And so Dr. Chain and Florey came in with their penicillin and started injecting him. And after 5 days of injections, it looked like he was going to recover. But they did not have enough penicillin available to treat him, and he ultimately died. And that is an important lesson right there about whether or not to take the full dose. Now, hearing this, a Dr. Norman Heatley then began to work fervently on ways to produce more penicillin. And World War II was the first time that penicillin was able to prove its mettle. In the previous World War, 18% of the deaths were from pneumonia. In World War II, that was only 1%. And that was the first war to produce more deaths from battle than from infection. And then in 1942, the first civilian case treated successfully was a woman who was near death after having a miscarriage and developing a blood infection that went systemic. And she was treated with penicillin and restored to health. You see, antibiotics are the basis of modern medicine. They make surgery much less risky. People survive and consider infections trivial that used to be considered deadly. Pneumonia is no longer the threat that it once was. I remember even when I was a child that a diagnosis of pneumonia was very scary. But today it's just, oh, okay, I've got pneumonia. I think I'll take these drugs and I'll get over it. I need to go to the doctor because I can't breathe. I think I've got pneumonia. And so pneumonia is not nearly as scary and threatening as it once was because of the modern antibiotics. In fact, a few years ago while out camping, I was bit by a tick and I did not realize that it was there. And through improper removal, the person that I got to help me remove it left the head in and I didn't realize it. I developed Lyme's disease. I simply called my medical doctor and said, okay, I've developed Lyme disease, and she called in a prescription for doxycycline. Within 10 days, the problem was taken care of. Lyme's disease, left untreated, is deadly. And so today, medical discipline is based on the ready availability of antibiotics. Now, in 1945, Drs. Fleming, Florey, and Chain received the Nobel Prize for the development of penicillin. And Dr. Fleming warned in his acceptance speech that overuse of penicillin would lead to bacterial resistance, which today we call antibiotic resistance. And that is what we're going to talk about next time. And so we'll follow this up in about a month. And next week, we're going to be talking about exercise. So until then, have a healthy, active, and fulfilling life.